Hi guys, and here's an update video for the Indiegogo campaign for the documentary They Call Us Channelers. Wow, just what can I say? It's been an amazing first week for the campaign as I hit the campaign goal for $15,000. And I just wanted to say from myself and my producer Marcella, a huge thank you to everyone who shared, everyone who's donated. It's just been absolutely amazing. And because we've reached the campaign goal so quickly, I've come to realize that obviously we've got a lot of people that want to participate their energy into this documentary. We have the ability to make something really special here. So I'm just super excited to announce here now that this is going to be a trilogy rather than a standalone documentary. So this means that we're going to be able to help those that are at the beginning part of their spiritual journey, and of course to the more advanced spiritual seekers out there as well. So as I head towards a trilogy of channeling documentaries now, please share, and if you feel drawn to donate to make this trilogy a reality, your support means the world. And of course the link to donate is in the description of this video as well. So I want this trilogy of channeling documentaries to cover a more beginner's level, then moving to a more intermediate, and then of course the very advanced information as well, but still allowing each individual documentary to stand on its own 2 feet. And we'll also be featuring some of the same channelers throughout the documentaries while introducing new channelers and participants and their stories. And of course we'll be featuring channelers from around the world as well, to show that no matter what ethnic background or country you come from, we all have this ability to tap within and to connect to our higher selves, where all answers lie. We're all that powerful, and of course not to forget the human side as well. So massive gratitude for everything that's transpired so far, and I'll catch you on another update soon. Much love. Broadcasting from the UK and across the world online. You're now watching The Moore Show, and I'm your host, Kevin Moore. Now for the next hour, I'll be covering subjects that will open up your mind and provide you with information you may have never heard before. Now on today's show, I'm about to be joined with my guest, Tim Freke. Now Tim is pioneering a new approach to spirituality that has touched the hearts and minds of hundreds of thousands of people worldwide. Now he is a truly inspirational speaker with an extraordinary ability to make deep ideas easily accessible in an entertaining way. Tim is an internationally respected authority on world spirituality and the author of more than 30 books which have been translated into 15 languages, including international bestseller and Daily Telegraph Book of the Year with the Jesus Mysteries. Now Tim joins me today to discuss his work and much more. Tim Freke, welcome to the show.
It's a pleasure to be here.
It's beautiful to have you on here, my friend. It really is. And I just want to pay homage as well to someone that we've just found out has just passed, just as we were just setting up for this interview as well, Louise Hay. You got to meet Louise, didn't you? As well.
I did, yes, just as we were, the emails just come in literally this second saying that Louise has died aged 90. Yeah, and I did. I was a Hay House author for a while, and got drunk with Louise in Las Vegas, which is a great thing to be able to say. And she was quite a lady.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll dedicate this show to her most definitely, because has made a massive impact into spirituality, and to get the other authors' message out there, if I can get the words out. I mean that's and Wayne Dyer as well, wasn't it? He was part of that.
Yeah, Wayne was a Hay House author. He was the headline act at the conference that I spoke at. When I met Louise. So yeah, and he's obviously died now as well. And I think that's there's a feeling, as I myself feel myself getting older. There is a at a certain point I realized that a lot of the people who had been my mentors, other people, that they were dying, and that it was up to me now and my generation. And then of course very soon will be off, and then it's up to the next generation, and that's you just get thrown the ball and you do your best, and then pass it on to the next people to complete the next stage of the work.
Isn't that a weird feeling? But you're so right what you've just said there, that you are now taking that challenge really, with the work that you're doing, because you've done some fantastic work, and I guess you never saw yourself as being the one to shine the torch in this field, though, did you? At one point?
No, not. I've always just done my best, and my criteria, Kevin, is always to go, well, what is the most useful thing that a Tim Freke can do right now? and also in part of that is I've always moved on. I've never wanted to get stuck in doing the same thing. Once I've done something, I've done it, and then partly because my motivation for doing this is altruistic, because I love that, but it's also to do with me. It's I want to be a writer because I want answers. I want to develop a new philosophy because I need a new philosophy. So what happened to me a couple of years ago was I stopped myself and went, what is it, Tim, that you need to do now? Right. And the answer was loud and clear. I needed to write the book that became Soul Story and develop the philosophy that became the philosophy of emergent spirituality, because the old philosophies weren't working for me.
Well, I don't think they're working for a lot of people. Again, I've been doing this show since 2008, and I would still say I'm kind of new into this field in some respects, but then it's just a reawakening of what was already there. Do you know what I mean? And I'm all for shaking up this spiritual arena right now, because I think it needs it. I mean, you're someone that is a pioneer in sort of shaking up things, really, because you've gone against the grain in some respects, and you've looked more at a 21st century spirituality than what's come before, and that it's very different what you do.
Yeah, I mean, the first part of my life as a writer, I wrote books about spiritual traditions. The middle bit, where I got catapulted into the sort of spotlight for the first time, was when I wrote about the origins of Christianity, and that was very controversial. Oh, yes. And suddenly became like the figurehead for that, which has taken off and become a big movement. But what my passion has always been is how can we understand and directly experience this state of awakening now? And then really recently with Soul Story, the new book, was and how can we understand the nature of what existence is in a way which can embrace all of my experience. And my experience personally is, on the one hand, life is very cause and effect. If I drop something, it falls. If I drop it again, it falls again. All that stuff that, it is like that. There is an element of life which seems quite brutal, indeed meaningless. And science explains that side of my life really well. But there's also a side of my life which is magical, which is full of meaning and synchronicities, where it feels like Tim's journey is not arbitrary, it's significant. And I need to understand that as well. And how can I understand both of those? And particularly, we've just talked about the death of Louise, particularly around death. I've spent a lot of time with people dying, both professionally and personally, and my sense is that death is a very important transition. But how the hell can you understand that in the light of modern science? So I'm looking for something to embrace all of that. And at the moment, well, we haven't had it, and my work is an attempt to open up a way of understanding it that we could develop.
And again, what's also really important about your work, which I really loved as well, is that you want us still to be human. You don't want to take that aspect away, because that's what a lot of spirituality doesn't. Well, see. Okay, that's what a lot of people, that some authors do, and I'm not going to name names because their work is just as valid as the rest. I'm not trying to take things away. I think everyone's work is at the point where they're at, and souls are attracted to the work at the level they're attracted to. But when you want even greater expansion, or you want to see it differently, that's where I'm coming from with the question in here.
Yeah, you're right. And I see that the whole spectrum of work attracts to different people and can do a lot of good. But I have to be also frank. And the truth is that when spirituality denies, denigrates, very often attacks our humanity, it actually does harm. And I deal with a lot of people who've been harmed by spirituality and are looking for a way of getting over that. And the reason is I think, simple, is that the traditional forms of spirituality, even I don't mean just like religion now, once you've gone beyond that kind of dogmatic religion and you find the real mystical heart, even then, these ideas were developed by people a long time. These are developed by people who thought the world was flat. Now,
some people still do.
We just need to think about that. You know, it's like, yeah. So things have moved on a long way, and our spirituality needs to move on as well. And there's this kind of crazy belief among spirituality that somehow it was better before, and it wasn't. We need to keep evolving and make it, and our job is to improve it, to take what they helped, they got us this far. Now we need to take it on. So spirituality, which takes us back, which attacks the separate self, denigrates the ego, our human attachments, our emotions, the mind, our ability to think, all of these things are often portrayed as negative, and I really don't think they are.
No, I don't think they are. I want my ego. You know, I mean, you know, I don't think I'm lost in the ego, yeah, but I can't help being the human side. I think to ignore the human side, it's like when you first had your daughter, I believe it was. This is what changed it for you. So let's use you as an example here, because this is your story. So prior to your daughter's birth, who were you in regards to these understandings and spirituality compared to holding your daughter in your arms? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean that was the big transition. I've been moving towards it, I guess, but it was just crystal clear, because before that, of course, I'd had these powerful experiences of awakening, dominated the whole of my life, was sharing them already with other people, writing books about all of these spiritual traditions, and had gone down the traditional route to some degree, which was, look, if you want to wake up to oneness, you get rid of separateness. If you want your divinity, you get rid of your humanity. Yeah. If you want to be free, you lose your attachments. And suddenly I'm holding this little baby in my arms, and it's like no one is going to tell me that our humanity is wrong. No one's going to tell me I should not be attached to this little bundle of life. And also I realized in that moment that the love I felt, far from freeing me from suffering, actually opened me to suffering willingly, because I realized if anything were to happen to this little child, I would suffer awfully, but I was willing to suffer. So all of those traditional ideas of spirituality about getting away just sounded crazy. And I felt like, no, I'm looking for a spirituality which gives me all of that awakening to the oneness and the love that embraces everything, and helps me engage with Tim as a human being. And that was the beginning of this new approach to spirituality, which I call paralogical, or both and. Not one or the other, but both of those. Wake up to your divinity and embody your humanity. And that seems to me the way forward.
And how, I mean, the $1,000 question, how do you do that? What would you suggest we can do to some simple steps?
Well, you know, the first thing, Kevin, is it's so much easier. The hardest thing is when you try and wake up to the oneness instead of your individuality, your separateness, it's actually impossible, because you are actually both. So nearly everyone who goes down that road spends their whole time fighting with themselves, wondering why they failed, feeling they're no good. This is why I deal with a lot of people damaged by it, trying to, you know, attack themselves or eradicate themselves or see through the illusion or something. Once you realize it's both, and you can let your individual's separate self be what it is, which is an evolving soul, something which is imperfect by its very nature, because it's evolving, and everything evolving will get better. And therefore, you constantly realize you've been unconscious. So it's imperfect. And then through that, you wake up to this extraordinary presence of deep being, which is one with everything. And this enormous love that arises with it. And Tim, you know, when that happens, you know, right now, you know, Tim is still just Tim. He's a guy doing his best. And there's this huge presence. And how do you do that? You just learn to pay it attention. And what I do in my book, my previous book, Deep Awake, and at my retreats that I run around the world, is I guide people directly to how to experience that. And honest to goodness, what is so shocking to me now is that with this new approach, I can pretty much guarantee that anyone will experience that awakening to that big love over a course of just a weekend retreat. because it's just available. It's right there, and you can just step into it.
So when you're doing this, and I'm guessing you're not labeling things as this is meditation and this is how deep we're going to go. You must be not using labels. You must be kind of hiding it in some way, but then letting someone experience it themselves without the labels.
I really don't use the labels much. I mean, sometimes these words will creep in. It's a natural state. It's absolutely natural. So what I get people to do is natural things. So what meditation is paying attention to your deep being. And I can show people how to do that. But what I've been doing for the last 20 years, and I'm delighted to see that more and more people are doing this now, is I'm getting people to actually connect and meditate, in a sense, on each other. Because the most incredible thing about the oneness is it means that you and I are both separate and not separate.
Yes.
We're also one. And when you experience that profound oneness with another individual, it's overwhelming. It's utterly beautiful. So I'll get people to do simple things like gazing, where I'll invite them to just connect with their eyes with another person, like we're doing, and go, hey, can you see that on the one hand, you're connecting with a face, a beautiful face. That's amazing in itself. But also, on a deeper level, you're connecting with another conscious being looking back at you, and you can't see that. So that when you just sit with someone for a few minutes, your conscious being, which has no form, you can't see it.
No.
But it's there,
no.
Connecting through looking with conscious being. And when you enter that connection, this deep awake state just starts to rise of itself, and it's beautiful to experience.
Yeah, through the eyes. That's right. That's where the soul is, isn't it? Beyond, it's in the eyes as well.
But you can do it through the ears too.
Yeah, okay, right.
You can do it through listening. You can do it through touch. It's really about using the senses to connect with something beyond the senses in another person. And I'd say of all the things I've practiced over the last, whatever it is, 4 decades, I've never found anything so powerfully transformative. And if you do it a lot over a weekend, it's just, the top of your head comes off.
Yeah,
really nice.
Absolutely. No, I know. Just even on your website, there'll be testimonies from people that have had that experience, genuine experiences, and I'm sure there's videos out there. I think there's videos on your YouTube channel where people talk about these experiences that are there as well.
Yeah, loads of them.
Yeah,
I've had the real privilege of doing this in so many different countries now, and seeing literally hundreds, thousands probably of people just wake up.
Yeah.
That it's a joy to see.
Well, that's right. You've been doing this for a number of years now, and as you mentioned before, your book, The Jesus Mysteries, I think that's what it was called, that really transformed you and gave you a platform. And well, just very briefly, that was about the idea that this was a mythical figure in a sense. The story wasn't an actual physical person.
Yes, the subtitle is The Original Jesus Was a Pagan God. So this is now really taken off over the last 20 years. But at the time we were writing it, was very unheard of, really. We started a whole movement, it turned out, which is kind of fun, saying, look, there's no evidence for an historical man, and that what we have as the story of Jesus is actually an ancient myth. It's an ancient pagan myth which has been adapted into many, many forms, including the form of Jesus. But it's also about Mithras or Adonis or Serapis or Osiris and so forth. And the key thing for us was we weren't doing this to attack it. The book is dedicated to the Christ in you, because actually what I think we have here is a Gnostic allegory about waking up. So it's about discovering what the original Christians called the gnosis, the deep knowing of your own divinity. And who is Jesus? Well, he's you. It's about your journey to waking up. So that was an amazing thing to find in our Western tradition. I didn't expect that, and it was a delight to go, oh, look, right at the heart of Christianity, there is an incredibly powerful mystical understanding of who we are.
And you could probably apply that to other religions.
Yeah, I think it's true of most of them. You go to the mystical heart, you find it. I think for me, really, I didn't, I come into Christianity, but I didn't know that it was in Christianity until we really looked into the Gnostic Christians. And as soon as we looked at these so-called heretics, who I think are actually the original Christians, the people who created the Jesus myth, as you like, I mean, a simple way to get what I'm saying, just make the whole, to just say it briefly, is the story contains loads of parables.
Yes.
Everyone knows that, the Good Samaritan and so forth. But if I said there's no real Good Samaritan, no one would be surprised, because it's a story. It's a teaching story. And I guess what Peter Gandy, my co-author, and I are saying is, look, the whole thing is a parable. The whole thing is a teaching story.
So that set, absolutely, thank you for that. And that set your platform up, really. And then your work, it did take a bit of a different direction, which it was, but then you talk about in your work the evolving understanding of what this nature of reality is. If you're going to say stuck in one place, how is that evolving anything, especially yourself?
Yeah, my authors wanted me to become Mr. Jesus because we'd had a successful book, but I wasn't interested in that. My interest has always really been, where are we going? Not where have we been? I mean, I wrote about the past. I'm fascinated by history. We need to understand it as much to set ourselves free, actually, as anything else.
Absolutely.
It's more like therapy in a way.
Yeah.
It's like, go back, understand it now. Let's go forward. And so for me, this is what my passion is. Okay, let's go forward, and we need a new approach to awakening. We need new practices, and then we need a whole new philosophy which unites spirituality with science.
Yeah, and just going back on, about the whole human side as well, that's such an important aspect of your work. Very slowly, there's people creeping into this work as well with this understanding. Even I've met other channelers as well, which is another form completely on the fringe of spirituality, but it's another form of bringing information through. Even some of them now are saying, you know what, let's not forget the human side here. Let's not forget this.
Yeah, I think it's been fascinating to see. It seems to be part of what I do is to light little fires that then burn brighter, and I'm very privileged to do that. And one of them has also been this both and approach. And certainly when I was around non-dual spirituality and waking up to oneness, there was a huge rejection. The deeper the spirituality went, the more there was a rejection of the ego, the separate self, the humanity. And I've seen that change in the last 10 years in particular. Now more and more people, I think, are getting, oh, no, it's both of these. We don't have to set up a war between these two things. It's both. It's obvious.
Well, why do we make it so bloody complicated, don't we? We make it so complicated, and it can be, with your work, it just seems so simple. Have it there, don't ignore it, but be here now. Are you much more in the present moment right now, would you say?
I would actually say that I'm much more in time. Because I think the movement for me has been, I'm stuck in time, I need to get into the present moment. Just like I'm stuck in separateness, I need to get into oneness. And then having done that for quite, deeply, I found that actually I want to come back into time. I'm really interested in Tim's story. I'm interested in my kids. I'm interested in the human adventure. It's both. It's both at once. But the movement has been more and more back into time, which is why it's just fascinating that in my new book, Soul Story, it's really about time. The whole thing is now about time. I'm talking about the evolution of the universe over 13.8 billion years of time. And so that time has become my major preoccupation because I find it much easier to be present than I used to.
Yeah, and and you don't have to be around, like-minded people all the time, do you? You can be around anyone.
I love being around people who think all sorts of stuff, and one of the things I really enjoy is being able to share ideas with people who have different ideas, who can challenge ideas. I love clear thinking. And by that I just mean good communication. Yeah. I really want to work as hard as I can to share my ideas as lucidly as possible, and I like them being challenged, and I like exploring. I like around being genuine explorers. People who aren't holding on tight to their own beliefs, but are willing to challenge things, and I think that's how we need to be. And also, really important for me, Kevin, rooted in the mystery. For me, it's important never to lose the sense that what we're in is so profoundly mysterious that nobody knows. And then from that humility, we can share, well, this is my guess. What do you think? What's your guess? Does this help you? Can you help me? But we do it within that mystery.
Absolutely. Well, what is your understanding then of so you would say, would you, that we're a soul having a human experience?
No, I'd say something much more than that now. I think that is the traditional view. The traditional view is we're souls and we've fallen into matter. The opposite of that is the scientific view, which is that we are matter which has become conscious and developed psyche or soul. My feeling is that the way to unite these two is the idea of emergence through evolution, and that as the evolutionary process has happened over 13.8 billion years from the Big Bang, we've seen first the evolution of matter, then the evolution of life, and then finally the evolution of soul, of psyche. So what I'm proposing to unite these science and spirituality is to say to science, consider the possibility that evolution didn't just end with biology, and that the psyche, the very thing we're experiencing, the soul, the imagination that we're having this conversation in, that's some sort of byproduct of biology and no more. But consider the possibility that it's gone matter, biology, soul, and that a whole dimension of reality has emerged through the evolutionary process. And then to spirituality, I'm saying, hey, consider the possibility that this dimension of soul, which we've been exploring forever, the soul, the dimension we go into at death, the dimension that has meaning and magic in it, the dimension which we can go off and explore with ayahuasca or meditation, consider that that hasn't always existed, but that has actually emerged through the evolutionary process. And it's come into existence and it's still evolving. And then I think we have a way that we can bring science and spirituality together into one incredible evolutionary narrative.
Okay, and if that was the case, then that the soul, which is an interesting way of looking at it, that the soul evolved as the matter did in a sense, yeah. So we've come from that to this. It sounds like the soul's perspective has evolved into greater understandings than we could possibly imagine than where we are now. You know, when we talk about going back home, or call it that, or whatever you want to personify it as, it sounds mostly with these near-death experiences of a place of great intelligence, greater intelligence than this, and you know, the reason for this to happen.
Yes. So my sense with the philosophy of emergent spirituality is, look, the soul, which has arisen from biology and come in through let me just say this, look, through the whole process of evolution, new things have constantly arisen for the first time. You know, there was once hydrogen and oxygen, but no water. Right. And then they combined for the first time, and then there was water. There was once no life, and then the first single cell happened, and then the first multi-cell happened, and then the first sensation and consciousness happened. And then the development of soul, the imagination, psyche, mind, whatever you call it, this other realm which everyone's experiencing right now, in which things are made of images, not made of matter. That evolved. And with that, I'm suggesting, came immortality. The body is not mortal. The body is born and dies. But the soul, the psyche, the thing you and I are experiencing right now, where we're understanding the meaning of these words, it's not made of matter, and it doesn't die. And an analogy that helps, I think, to understand what I'm trying to say is that if you imagine when I wrote my book, Soul Story, I wrote it on a computer.
Yes.
And it would look like that all the information was on the computer. And so if I dropped my coffee on the computer, I'd lose it all, dead. But actually, that information which was on the computer was also on the cloud. And so that if the computer got destroyed, it's all still there. It was linked to the computer, but where's the cloud? Well, it's nowhere. And the clouds, by this analogy, is like soul. You know, I'm here, I'm a body. It looks like it's all coming through this. And if this dies, that's it. But actually, all the information is also in soul. And soul is not anywhere. It's not made of matter. And it survives. So what I'm suggesting is that as that has happened, soul becomes immortal. And that the experience we have after death has itself evolved. So that if you look, I wrote a book called The History of Heaven, and if you look at how people have experienced the after-death state, you can actually see it evolving. It starts with, the Greeks have a shadowy realm, the underworld. It's all very nebulous. It hasn't really formed. Then you get these like versions of your life, but idealized, the drinking halls of Valhalla, the happy hunting grounds. And then when religions arise, you get great after-death experiences with Buddhas and saints. And now, like you said, with NDEs, you go into these incredible landscapes where anything's possible. And they sound like dreams because I think they are, but not dreams as unreal, but actually as a deeper level of reality, collective world of images, which we've created through the evolutionary process. So my guess is the thing you're talking about is that once we've gone deeply into that, and we can do that now actually, but once we go into it deeply at death, it's the highest form of life, of emergence, of evolution. So it is much more intelligent. It's much greater. You have a real sense of you being the most you are. So that when we fall back into this state, we lose that. So there's a sense of, oh, I want to go home. I've lost something. But actually, the overall arc is evolutionary. The overall arc is we can go deeper and deeper and deeper, and that other realm is emerging through this one and coming into existence as the flowering, if you like, of the evolutionary process. And that's how they're all linked together.
Okay. I mean, deep questions, but what was there before the Big Bang then? I mean,
great question.
Yeah, because was there just nothing? And if there was nothing, what is nothingness?
Yes, great question. So what can you say about what's before the Big Bang? Well, of course, spirituality generally wants to slide in before the Big Bang, God, in some form or another, a super intelligence, Brahmin, something which is creating all of this. That's obviously completely unacceptable to science because it feels like, well, you've just created a whole being from nothing and said it's at the beginning. How can you justify that? What could we say that both science and spirituality might be able to go along with? It seems to me that we can say for sure that what existed before the universe was the potentiality for the universe, because the universe has come from it. So the potentiality for galaxies, for life, for you and me having this conversation, for soul, for immortality, everything that has come from it, it's come from a potentiality. And one of the names that people like Hegel, for instance, philosophers have given to that is spirit, essence, being. So there's formless being, which is the potential for everything, which is realizing itself as the universe. And it realizes itself in very basic forms to begin with, like simple matter, hydrogen, for instance. It then realizes itself as vast galaxies. It then realizes itself as life forms, then conscious life forms, sentient life forms, and then as soul. So that the deepest thing I'm suggesting, which I'm kind of jumping in deep here, but I'm sure I'll do it, is that through the evolution of soul, through the evolution of ourselves as souls, we become more individual, more conscious. And as we become more conscious, we can have the potential to spiritually awaken. And that spiritually awakening is the cutting edge of the evolutionary process. And what's happening when we awaken, all those things we talked about at the beginning of our conversation, is that we become conscious that our deepest being is the potentiality from which everything's come. That your being and my being are the same being. And it's the same being in everything. And when that happens, that oneness, the formless oneness of potentiality knows itself through us. And that oneness becomes conscious of itself through us. And that conscious oneness arises as this incredible love, because love is how oneness feels.
I wonder.
So for me, that's what's there before, and it's also where we're going in a sense.
I wonder what's beyond that conscious awareness now. If there's anything beyond that conscious awareness, if the conscious awareness was aware of anything beyond itself.
Well, the end of my story, the evolutionary story, which I'm playing with people, wanting to explore, is around the idea of God. And God's a difficult word. Many people find it difficult, but if you translate, if anyone's listening going, oh, I don't like that word, just translate it and call it spirit or whatever you like. The problem with God, I have to, for the first time when I woke up, I was 12 years old, I experienced this enormous oneness and love, and I thought it's God. And because that's the vocabulary I had to hand. And I've experienced all my life this super intelligent being of love, which I am connected to, commune with. So I have to explain that. But the problem I've got, Kevin, is if you do what spirituality has done so far and you put God at the beginning of time, there's real problems now. Because you've got the traditional problem, which is the problem of evil, which I don't think you can get away from, which is if there's a being of love at the beginning of time who creates the whole thing, why is there so much horror and suffering? Why are innocent babies right now being eaten by parasites from the inside out and just unspeakably horrible things? How can that be if this is all the creation of being of love? And then since modern science, we've also got a new problem, which I call the problem of absurdity, which is if there's a being of love, if God's at the beginning and he wants to get to you and I as souls, awakening, having this conversation, blah, 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 why did we have 120 million years of dinosaurs? What possible reason would that be for that? Why did we have 5 complete extinctions where all of life, this God he's not very clever. It's like he's doing a lot of crazy stuff here. And so if he's at the beginning, I don't like him much. And I have a problem with him. So here's my suggestion. Here's the thing I want to drop in and see what you think. My suggestion is that God, the being of love, isn't at the beginning of time, it's at the end of time. It's not where this has come from, it's where this is going. It is the high point, the true complete flowering of the evolutionary process. The universe is the potentiality of spirit evolving into fully realized spirit, which is a being of love. And it's doing it through us. And just like my body is made up of lots of little cells that all come together to make the body of Tim, much bigger than any of them, so individual souls come together in this recognition of oneness to create a conscious being of transcendent spirit. And that's what this evolutionary process is leading to.
Interesting, very interesting. And we're going to come back to everything you've said there, or most that I can
I know I said a lot,
can remember.
No, it's a role to tell the story.
It's great. So yeah, there is talk that souls choose to have certain experiences when they come down here. So, this consciousness that you're suggesting has evolved since the biology has started off, and then the consciousness started off at the same time. This consciousness has become very intelligent, very, very clever, very sophisticated, and it's aware of itself, and it's in dimensions maybe that's as real as you and me having this conversation right now. Or it's an understanding that we couldn't even comprehend because we're just not able to even comprehend it right now. We're using human words to kind of try to make sense of it. But yeah, when we talk about having soul agreements with people, having lived past lives before with different selective groups coming down here to maybe fix what once went wrong or whatever. How does that fit into this picture that you've got?
Yeah, I'm very keen to try and make sense of that because I experience all those things. And at the end of the book, I deal with many of those issues because I think there is a sort of intentionality in all of life, actually. And, I don't like the idea of fate because that seems to destroy the purpose of my life, the idea that everything's fixed. But I do like the idea of destiny because it feels like it comes from the same root as destination.
Free will, yeah.
Yeah, and that when you have a destination, you may or may not reach it, but you know that something's calling you, and that you feel like certain things are meant to happen, or that and they're meant to happen because you intend them in some deep level. Go. And this book felt like, to be honest, it felt like when I've written this book, it felt like, good, that's what I came to do, done it. Phew.
Right.
That's what I've been trying to do all these years, and I've arrived. That's amazing. It was quite a feeling, actually. It was like this huge weight lifted from my shoulders. Oh my God, I've actually written the thing that Tim knew he had to do, and so I think there is that. So I think what I'm aiming at with this spiritual emergence, this idea of the whole evolutionary picture, like I said right at the beginning of our conversation, is something that explains the ambiguity of my experience, because it seems to me that all those levels of evolution are all happening together right now. So there's the basic level of matter which is happening right now, and I need to live with it. And sometimes it's hard to manipulate.
Right.
I really wish I could teleport to America because I've got jet lag coming back, but I can't. And then there's my biology. I need to feed Tim. He's getting older. He's going to get ill. That's inevitable. I need to look after this body. There's things he can and can't do. That's just right there. And then there's soul. There's all my experiences and memories and imagination and that whole other level of my existence. And that's having an effect. And I think it's actually having an effect in terms of giving my life meaning. I think that we can understand things like what gets called the law of attraction. I think it's a terrible name because I really don't think it is quite that like that. But there is something going on that brings magic into our lives. And I think we can start to understand that with this model. And then there's God, this transcendent being of love. And there's also having an effect. Like you said, this super intelligence, which is beyond Tim. I don't know what it's like to be God any more than a cell knows what it's like to be Tim. But I know what it's like to be in God. And that's love.
Yeah, I mean, let's transform the word God to love, because
love,
you
spirit,
spirit, whatever you like. I mean, there's lots of authors that have come to my show that have brought information through or downloads that they've had, or however they've brought the information through, where they feel that consciousness will choose whatever it wants to choose to have an experience in. So there's consciousness in everything: the rocks, the books on our shelves, the iPad that I've got in front of me. Everything's got some form of consciousness in, which just sounds crazy on one level, right? But consciousness is desperate to know itself in all forms, and that's what this reality does, for it to have that understanding of just what it's like to be in that from that space. So when we say why did the dinosaurs die out and all this kind of stuff, it matters not for the consciousness, but just to have the experience in that form. But that's just that's just someone else's opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think in one way I agree with that. I would have used the word consciousness myself if you talked to me probably just a few years ago. I prefer not to now, just because it feels like consciousness, in terms of like this experience we're having, is something which has evolved. It's emerged. It wasn't there before there were any life forms. It wasn't there. But I do think we can say that everything has subjectivity. Even simple cells are discriminating the world around them. Even particles are checking out the electromagnetic pulses around them. So everything's discriminating the world and itself being discriminated. So everything's a subject and an object. And I think that has just evolved, so that subjectivity turns in eventually to sentience, looking and listening, and then turns into soul, thinking and imagining. So that in a way, everything is on that trajectory towards consciousness, even if it's not really conscious at some point. And I agree also that the potentiality is realizing itself as everything, including the dinosaurs. Magnificent. Why not? What it suggests to me is that it's not doing it in there's not some already existent thing planning it all. Because if it's being planned, it's a pretty weird plan. If it's being actually just an exploration of itself, that makes sense and is much nearer, I think, to the scientific view too. And therefore we can unite the two together on that basis, so that the potentiality, primal spirit, is realizing itself as everything, including you and me. And we are on the leading edge of that.
Of course. But where it seems to be now, if I was to top on myself now, and I hope I would go somewhere, I'm not, I mean, I can't say for sure what it would be, right? But whatever it would be, it feels like it would be more intelligent than what I'm able to bring across it even in this moment right now. Much more intelligent, much more just something that's just so much greater, right? But not to take away my greatness or yours, that we are part of it. So it is us. It's just re-remembering, and we're almost re-remembering where we came from. It's almost like AI. It's become pretty amazing, but so it's not kept up at the same pace as what we are. That's what I'm saying. If it's evolved from biology, it's gone an exponential evolution beyond any understanding that we've got.
Yes. Yes, I think so. It is the flowering of the whole thing. It's the most emergent thing. So I think one of the key things that people experience at death is a major transition, obviously. And I think, just as if you take ayahuasca or LSD, or you go into an altered state, or you even come to one of my retreats, I think you will experience a massive transition. And suddenly you're in touch with something much bigger than you imagined straight away. So death is like that writ large, I suspect. And being around people who are dying, that's been my intuition with it. Instantly someone's died, I felt like this enormous presence. How did something so big become limited by something so small? And the other thing which people experience is entering into communion with a being of light. It's a very common experience. And my suspicion is that what's happening is that we are as souls sparks within that being of light, and we get to commune with that for a while, and that brings into being this super conscious transcendent being of love, and then we fall away from it, and then we evolve and we come back into
well yeah, because we seem to soon want to come back, don't we, to this?
I think I think it's a natural process, because the roots, which are in matter, and the flowering, which is transcendent being, it's all one thing. And right now you can see it. Look, it's all happening at once. There's not one of them is not dominating. It's not all perfect. God isn't running the show, clearly, because it's not all love. But some of it's cause and effect, some of it's biology, some of it's intentionality and magic, and some of it is divine guidance. And they're all happening together, and it's all evolving together as one. And that process is ongoing. And we move between these different levels all the time. A bit like, you and I are conscious now and we're having this conversation, but in a few hours' time, we'll be asleep, we'll be off in a different world, we'll be dreaming, we'll be in deep sleep. And we have to go there to sustain this. And my suspicion is to sustain that super conscious being of love, we fall away. We can't, it's just not possible to sustain it all the time. We come back, we evolve more, we go further. We evolve more, we go further. And there's a kind of a movement, like a breath in and out, just as we do sleeping and waking.
But what about people who channel, who are able to bring in teaching information from that dimension then, to make this present moment more enjoyable, more loving, and more peaceful?
Well, what I'm saying really, Kevin, is that the world of soul is the imagination. That's what it is.
I've always thought that.
And the world of but not as something to be dismissed, not like just imagination, but actually, no, the imagination, which is the most emergent level of reality. The evolutionary process has taken us from matter to imagination. I don't think anyone could disagree with that, actually. Even the most staunch materialist must agree with that. The difference is I'm going, and it's a whole realm. It's a whole dimension of reality, so that when people are channeling, when people take, go on shamanic journeys, they're going into the imagination. And like all of us, they can come back with things which are amazing and beautiful, or they can come back with a lot of nonsense. And it can be a bit of both.
Well, amazing and beautiful. Yeah. Well, then the imagination is the freedom that we're looking for, then, to try to work out between us or what the nature of this reality is.
Yes. Absolutely, and we're doing it right now with the imagination, aren't we? I'm physically, in biology, I'm just making funny noises, and then you make funny noises. But what's happening in imagination is we're passing ideas between us, and in doing that, we're trying to understand what the hell's going on, to find concepts which can help us conceptualize this incredible mystery to reveal its deep nature.
So then if we're going to continue like parrots with each other in the spiritual field and not use our imagination to create new truths for ourselves, or go beyond another person's understanding by creating a new one for ourselves, then how are we ever going to evolve?
Exactly, my friend. That's why it's so important that we see this power of imagination and use it wisely, which is take what's of value, build on it, take it forward. Do it with a sense of humility, do it with a sense of openness, and try and discover. And we don't, and see that when we re-understand things, we don't dismiss the past. We just see it deeper.
Yes.
And that's a wonderful thing
yes,
to do.
What you're saying there is you're not taking away anyone's valued work or timeless work, because the level that the soul that comes to that work is the level that the soul that comes to it, and that's needed, right? But we're saying, where's the evolution of spirituality? When are we going to go further? There must be more. I keep saying this in my interviews, and I know it's pissing some people off, but there's a reason you've come on, because this is where my understanding's going. That there's something bigger. I said to you at the beginning of this interview about this idea of this documentary I'm doing, where we're trying to dig deeper into another framework. And I've kept saying, if you watch some of my interviews, which I know you ain't got the time to, but I'm not making this up. I've said that imagination is the key to this, because the more we can imagine, it's the way into a new paradigm. Because I'm not saying it's not been working for us up to this point, right? But there has to be something. There has to be something more, and does that make me and you not special from anyone else, but it makes us all equal? But does it just mean that, well, what does it mean? Why are we thinking this way?
I think, always change needs pioneers. And one of the things, if you go deep into soul, and certainly if you commune with deep being, is that we are all equal, and there's no better or worse. But from that love comes a desire to serve the evolutionary process. And part of that is to dare to be a pioneer for what seems the best. Now, I don't know, of course, how could I? But it seems to me that what you're saying is exactly right. And that what we need, it feels that the evolutionary journey for the cosmos, for humanity, the whole thing, requires a deep spirituality now. And religion is huge, of course, but it's fading. We're seeing the worst of it. It sets spirituality free. Now spirituality has to be up to the job, and that requires it to evolve to a new level, a level where it can really awaken us for real, because it's so clear, where it doesn't deny her humanity.
Oh God, no. Where
it can engage us in communion, in love, but also where it's willing to think clearly, to have a strong and rational philosophy, where people can stand up without fearing they sound like they're woo-woo, and go, no, I think the survival of the soul after death is a perfectly rational and defensible idea, and makes sense in the light of our scientific understanding, without having to contradict it and just go, no, that's all rubbish, I just believe this. Where we can, and we need that. And if we can, and that can move into mainstream society, then we will enter a whole new phase of our evolution. But it really
pisses some people off, this kind of talk. It really upsets people. It does.
Yeah, it does.
It really does, because they're not ready for it, and they call it a shit interview, or they'll call it, we're just saying the same thing. But I think the same thing's coming through on my interviews right now, because there's something that's knocking on the door almost to say.
I'm astonished, Kevin. I mean, I've been traveling around recently a lot in the US and in Italy and in this country. Overwhelmingly, when I get the chance to share these ideas, I'm finding the majority of people I'm talking to are going, wow, yeah, that really resonates with something I already know.
Right.
And that's what I'm always looking to do as a philosopher. That's my favorite reaction. Is when people come up to me and go, I kind of know what you're saying, but I haven't been able to think it, but you just helped me think it. And it feels like, yeah, that's right, because this is the next thing that we're all feeling. And my job is, I'm a mouth, I'm a philosopher. So my job is to say it well and then give it to you so that you can take it and use it.
Well, why are you coming out with this now compared to no one else that's talking like this? Well, there are, but in different ways, but not many, right? There's obviously some changing times that we're going through right now as a collective as well, right? There's some big shifts that are going through, and I'm guessing that now is the time for this. That kind of almost makes me, when I'm saying that, to say it's preordained. But what if that super conscious realm where we go to, that's evolved, as you say, from the start of biology, more evolved than where we are right now because it's more aware. Is coming through in ways that it wants us to improve, because our improvement is its improvement.
Well, one of the kind of things which is implied by the ideas I've been sharing with you is that God, transcendent being, God is always becoming greater because it's an evolutionary process. So it's not like perfect at the beginning. It's becoming stronger and more evolved and just more powerful. The more we evolve into it, the more it becomes. So that the becoming greater is the real greatness. So its effect is being felt more and more.
Well, what about this? Just to end on this as well, is that, you know, we talked about how amazingly beyond a supercomputer that it is. You know, if we all started at the same timeline, right? You know, biology and consciousness, it's evolved to in areas that we can't even imagine, right? What if it's been able to do that because there's not just me and you in this dimension? There's alternative dimensions that me and you are having this experience. What if there's interdimensionalism in this reality that we don't understand, and all those different dimensions are all going back to this super consciousness, and that's how it's speeding its progression up so much, because there's an infinitive number of me and you out there that we're not aware of, right? And there's a bigger nature to this reality than what we even perceive.
I'm sure that it's much bigger and more wonderful than I can possibly imagine. But I want to, just in the same way that I want to value our humanity, I want to focus on what we do know. And what we do know now is that we are at the end of 13.8 billion years of evolution in this gigantic universe, which has flowered into life and soul here. And we know that we can explore all of that. And when we do, we explore matter and life, it's amazing. And those of us that have explored soul, it's also amazing, utterly amazing.
Yeah, go on. Yeah, sorry.
So my feeling is, look, that process alone is enough to blow my mind, and to see that the same process that has got from hydrogen to you and me having this conversation is enough to go, and it's led to this being of love, because why not?
Well, we did say here that we could make up some new truths. I'm just saying, what if, right?
Yeah, why not? Yeah, and I think those what ifs are worth doing, because we should always stay open.
And I like how you bring it back to present moment, because I said it, didn't I? As some of this conversation may be unfair, that for the documentary I'm doing, I want it to go back to present moment. I want to go deep, but only I want it to show that it does go back to present moment. And I just want to bring this one thing back, is that we are all one. That's a big thing in your book, in your work as well. And what I mean by that as well is, what we do to another, we do to ourselves.
Yes, absolutely, my friend. And so the whole journey for me is from the formless oneness of potentiality through the evolution of conscious individuality to the point where the conscious individuality knows its deep nature and arises as conscious oneness. And that for me is what soul is now doing. Going so deep that it's becoming conscious of that oneness. And that's when we commune in love.
What would you say is the most important message of your work, Tim?
At the end of the day, Kevin, at the end of the day, the most important thing is love. When someone comes to my events, I don't really mind if they go away disagreeing with me, or they don't even understand it, or it's not for them. That's fine. But I really want us all to share the love. The love, that from my first awakening, I would say that the three simple thoughts that arose and are still with me all of these decades later is, underneath it all, despite the suffering, life is good, death is safe, and what really matters is love. And all of this philosophy is a way of supporting those childlike intuitions and giving me the confidence to really live with them.
Tim, I think your work is amazing. I just want to say that. And what is your website, please?
It is timfreke.com, and it's such a funny name. You're bound to find me as long as you spell it Freke. And there's loads of free stuff and information about my retreats and events and all of that. And you can sign up and stay in touch on Facebook and all the rest of it.
Excellent. So now, just to let you know, your books and your website have been coming on the screen throughout this interview, so be rest assured there that everything's been there. And I really love your work. I wasn't prepared for this interview in the sense of what you were going to say there, and I'm shocked that what you've said is the way that I've been thinking for these past few months, and that's just blowing me more than anything in this interview, to be honest with you, without having to make anything up. That's the truth.
Well, I'm delighted to hear that, my friend. I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, and that it's not just me and you, as you said. There'll be others that are watching this saying, "Shit, I feel the same way as well." So
yeah, and they should get in touch. You know,
yes.
we need to be in touch with each other.
Yes, definitely.
To bring this in, it's not going to be me that brings it in or you. It's going to be us.
No, absolutely, absolutely. So if someone wants to get in contact with you, they can do that via your website as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
Website, Facebook.
Oh, Tim. It's 57 minutes. We're way over time. I'm just so glad that you've come on today, and just thank you for the work that you're doing in this world as well. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks for having me on.
Well, we've come to an end on today's show. Don't forget that you can listen and watch all our past interviews on the More Show's official YouTube channel. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel for new daily shows. You may also find out more on our past and upcoming guests by going to themoreshow.com, and do like us on Facebook and Twitter for the latest updates. So until next time, be safe.